Mr. Gazda here, homework 542, this is weather review. This topic here of fronts, very, very challenging for students, really, so pay close attention, go through it again if you need to. Excuse me, base your answers to these questions on the satellite image shown in your answer booklet. This satellite image shows a low-pressure system. Okay, that's key. It shows a low-pressure system over a portion of the U.S. Air mass symbols and frontal boundaries have been added. Line XY is one frontal boundary, A, B, C, D. White areas are clouds. Okay, so here's a front here. This is a whole low-pressure system. Don't forget low-pressure, lousy weather. 54 in your answer booklet, which is this here. I think I wrote below on this one. In the answer booklet below, draw the proper symbol to represent the most probable front on line XY. Sorry, XY. So this front here, what front is it? Well, this here is a cold front. You can recognize that. And the cold front's going this way. What would it be here? The real way to know is, it's low pressure. Wind is going like this. It's going counterclockwise. The clock is high. The counter is low, right? Low counterclockwise. So this is going this way. Now, MT, maritime tropical, the key thing tropical, that's warm, so it's warm air going this way. It's going to be a warm front. The symbol for warm front, which you're going to need to draw, is going to be on page 13 of the reference table, which is right here. Okay, warm front are those little rounded humps, and it's going this way, so it should be like this. Okay, like this. Draw them in. Make sure they look rounded and not pointy. Some people just draw them quickly or do a bad job of it, and it's hard to tell. Hard to tell equals wrong, so take your time, draw it carefully. That would be the first one, 54, warm front. Again, counterclockwise and in. 55, state one process that causes clouds to form in the moist air along the cold front. What causes clouds to form here? One needs to be a process. So, for instance, the best one would be, I think the best answer would be condensation. Okay. Condensation is probably the answer most people are going to get. Water vapor condenses, becomes liquid. You also could probably put cooling. Cooling air will cause air to cool to dew point. That works too. And rising air, which causes it to expand and cool, it causes condensation. Those also work. I think most people would put condensation for that one. 56. Describe one piece of evidence shown on the map that suggests A has a lower relative humidity than B. A is lower than B relative humidity. A basic one is A has no clouds and B is cloudy. That's kind of a basic one. That is a proper answer, though. That's kind of basic. Another one you could say is A is in a continental polar air mass and B is in a maritime tropical. So continental is going to be dry. Maritime forms over water. It's going to be wet. You could say that as well. Those are probably the two best answers there. I'm not going to write them in the interest of saving time. So 57 asks this question. Explain why location C most likely has a cooler temperature than D. C is cooler than D. Why is C is cooler than D? And explain. Explain is never going to be one word, so be careful. I think the best answer here is D is in a maritime tropical air mass, is over there. So tropical means warm. C is kind of in this whole continental polar. That makes it cooler. Okay, so C is in continental polar, D is in maritime tropical. Oftentimes I get students that say D is further south, closer to the equator. C is further from the equator, causing it to be cooler. Also works. Those are two best answers. You could probably theoretically say C is cloudy, blocking out some of the sun. D is not cloudy. But those are some of the answers. That was 57. 58. State a compass direction. The center of this low-pressure system will move over the next few days if it follows a normal storm track. So this low-pressure center, this is the low right here, like kind of where they meet. That's where the low would be. How's it going to move? It's going to move kind of somewhere in like here to here. Okay? So the best answers here would be east or northeast. That is the way weather moves in the U.S. Okay, east or northeast is really the answer. One of those two is good. Anything else is not really going to work. Okay, on to the back. Are you ready? Here we go. My thing went through there. Okay, so 53 on the weather map in your answer booklet, which is this, right? The L at the location of the center of the low-pressure system. So the fronts extend out from the low-pressure system, so the center will be there. And this was all Regents questions. This is what New York State expects you to know. So be on top of this. And the L had to be somewhere in there. There was a little circle it had to be in. So that's where your L should be for number 53. 54, on the weather map, write the air mass symbols to indicate the most likely locations of the continental polar, okay, maybe I'll underline that, and the maritime tropical air mass that form this low pressure system. So, this is a cold front, warm front. This is going this way, this is going that way, okay, these kind of indicate the direction it's going. So, cold front, front of cold air, continental polar, that's the cold one. CP, something like that. This is a warm front. Oh, you got to know it's going this way, but it actually kind of tells you it's going like this, like this. So this is the front of warm air. It's a warm front. Maritime tropical. This whole air mass is maritime tropical. This whole air mass, kind of all of this is continental polar up here. Okay? That is key. Cold front, front of cold air. Warm front, front of warm air, moving that way. What's that? 55. On the weather map in your answer booklet, place an X where precipitation is most likely occurring. Say, precipitation at a cold front kind of occurs right along the cold front here. It's usually a narrow band, air is forced straight upward, you get heavy rain like thunderstorms, but kind of narrow area. Warm front, the rain is out in front of it. Not as heavy rain, but longer period of rain, so it should really be here. And the answer key, I remember it well for the regions. Actually, I was just looking at it. It has like, your X must be somewhere, I'm going to shade in the area. It must be somewhere like this, somewhere in here. Okay, and then it had this, and then it had like an area here, okay? And like it said, students' X's must be in this area, something like that. And maybe, probably not as far out there, but that's where it should be, out in front of the warm front, right at the cold front, okay? That is what you should have. Your X should be somewhere in there as for number 55, so eye that up as best you can. 56. Which type of weather front has entered New York State? You need to realize that that is New York State. If you don't recognize that, you could go to this page of the reference table. Look, that is the shape of New York State. You could find it on there. That's New York State. That front right there. It's asking what kind is that. Also, too, in your reference table, page 13 has the frontal symbols. This one is really about looking up the fronts. So all it is find that symbol there. That's a warm front right there. Warm front. So you have to know that it's in there. But once you do, you look that up. That's pretty straightforward. Warm front. So that's just looking it up. And then 57, warm moist air is rising along the two frontal surfaces. Describe how the water vapor in this rising air forms clouds. Include dew point and condensation in your answer. I will say, in all my years, this is probably one of the hardest regions questions I've ever seen, and that students really get it, don't do well with it. However, I think this has been explained in class, and I've done a lot to try to go through this. But you have to include those two words, and that really makes it difficult for people. So, warm, moist air is rising along. Describe how water vapor in this rising air forms clouds. Okay, there's a whole page on the notes on this. Something we could say, I'm going to say it in words. Air rises and cools until it reaches dew point, and then condensation occurs. Something like that, right? Air rises, it expands, it cools. Cold air cannot hold as much water vapor as warm air, so it gets more and more full of water vapor. It cools to its dew point, and then the water condenses. So something like that. Air cools to dew point, and then condensation occurs. Something like that. But that is a key concept, and I really think everyone should know this here. I'm more interested in this than I am some of the reference table stuff, because this is the process that's really happening, how things work. So that's key. Go through this again. This stuff is challenging. It is on the test, and you're supposed to know it. So, and I'm really interested in people knowing it. I'm Mr. Gazda for Gazdoni Productions. Thanks for watching.